Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of Business and Financial Raw Talk. I am Luana Bradford, the Chief Operating Officer of the Bradford Group, as well as Principal of the Bradford Group Consulting. And I am so excited because I have a longtime friend, strategic partner, who is going to be joining me this evening on this platform. And we all know that there's a lot of angst going on in the world with what is the economy doing? Rates are rising. Oh my gosh, what does this mean for my credit? And I thought, because this is Financial Literacy Month, this is the time to bring back to our platform Deborah Morris. I'm going to say Deborah Morrison. I apologize. Deborah Williams. Deborah Morrison was on 2 weeks ago. And she and Deborah Williams have collaborated together during one of our business and financial boot camps that we have. In fact, we are about to enter year 4, so maybe we can convince Deborah Williams to come back. But let me just step aside and let you meet this amazing woman. Deborah, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend a little time with us today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, for those who may not know who Deborah Williams is, I want to tell you just a little bit about her, and then I'm going to turn it over so that she can give us a little once upon a time story. So Deborah Williams is the CEO of A Fresh Start LLC, and this is a company that has been in existence since 2006. And they are passionate about helping people understand what credit is, how to build it, if it's broken, how to fix it. And through her company, she is touching the lives of individuals and businesses alike and families to help them realize that achieving financial sustainability and solvency is possible, but it first has to start with understanding the networks around you, the different avenues that can tug on your finances, and that begins with credit. She is also the founder of, and I want to make sure I get this right, Women's Enterprise Network United LLC. And she founded that in 2019. And the purpose is to help women realize that they can, in fact, achieve their dreams and success in business. So welcome again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I want to start with a little once upon a time story, because everyone has a once upon a time story when it comes to why they're so passionate about something like business or finance, right? I mean, you're just not born with this passion. Something happened, a seed was planted. And so with you, Deborah, what is it about credit and why are you so passionate? And you literally are on a mission to change lives, one person at a time, one family at a time.
Right. One thing that sticks out to me in the beginning is when I grew up, my father taught us about credit, and he used to make sure that we pay all his bills. He kept stressing that I want you to pay the bills. I'm going to put my check out there, and I want you to pay each bill. So what I did was look at his check and was like, Dad, you don't have enough money to pay these bills. So how can you do that? He said, well, what we do is put a little bit on each account. At that time, you can put $10, $20, whatever on each account. And he said that will build up your credit score. That was at 10 years old, so I didn't even know what that meant. So later on in life, I started working with a mortgage company. And what we did was we try to prepare clients to buy their homes. But what we noticed during that big market time, I think it was around 2004 and 5 when it crashed afterwards, but everyone could buy a house. Anybody could buy a house. You don't even have to show any documents. Your credit score look good, you can buy a house. Well, what happened was the market crashed. People credit scores was 580. At that time, they could buy a house. Well, now you see the industry has changed drastically. And what I found out when I was helping these clients trying to buy a home is that they didn't know what a credit report really was. They just heard they have to have a credit score to get this home, and that's it. Once the market crashed, then you had to educate them about a credit report, because now you cannot buy a home, not mostly with the great interest, interest rate with 580. So once I found out that they did not know how to read credit report, that's when my passion started, because education is power, coaching is power. And it's not letting, a lot of people feel that if their credit score is like my clients, some of them, if their credit score is low, they don't want to talk about it. Their head is down. They never pull their credit report. They do not know that why there is three scores and what's the middle score, but it's not the number in the middle. So it's that education that I like to do with my clients first. Is not just tell them this is what you need to do. Let's educate you to get you there. And the passion is the reward at the end. They can buy what they want. They have options, and you don't have to go back and bury your head in the sand.
I love what you said. You gave a lot of in your Once Upon a Time. You gave a lot of key nuggets that I want us to tease out. The first thing is just hearing what I heard is your value, and your value position is that first you want to educate. You and your team feel that if we can educate, then we can empower. And I think that's amazing because so many companies, and there's nothing wrong with it. We're all in business to make money, right? But so many companies, the dollar is the leading driver, right? But you've kind of flipped that on its head and said, no, let me take care of this person. Let me empower them. Let me show them how to fish, if you will, so then they can build a life of their dreams. Let me ask you this. So, and you said something else, which is really key. You said people don't like to talk about it. And we know women would rather talk about death than they would their finances. And we're in what's known as the she session, meaning the women have been hardest hit during this pandemic. When you think about the industries that have shut down that were had a large percentage of women in them, where did we go? We had to go home, and we're taking care of aging parents or our children. We're sort of sandwiched in. So the gains that we made, we have actually started to go a little bit backwards. What are you seeing, and how are you helping clients right now? Because I know a lot of people are a little panic stricken now that we have the war in the Ukraine, and we're seeing rising gas prices. We're seeing interest rates go up, and people are starting to panic.
Right. What I'm seeing right now, because my business now is booming for me. This reason why this is tax season. Every time tax season is when majority of my clients come to me because they want to improve their credit scores, because they have extra money that's coming in. Because there is the thing that stops a lot of people from working on their credit. So what I have found out just recently with a lot of clients is that this is the time now for me to build my credit score for maybe 2 years. I just got off the phone with one client, and he wants to buy in 2 years. That's a good thing to do. So if you already know that your credit score is down low and you want to buy in a year, let me prepare myself first. So while we're in this pandemic, what can I do? If I'm working from home, have my own business, can I do one account at a time? Or do I need to do anything if I have no accounts? I have no debt. What do I do? So then you're going to have to educate them again about, okay, to get through this pandemic or to get through this crisis of interest is number one is pay your bills. That's number one. Because without paying your bills, that's where your credit starts. And what I always like to say is your credit report is a story book of your life. From the beginning, you have the middle of the story to drive it, and you have the closure of your story, how you want to end it. You control it, but life happens. So if life happens, it doesn't mean you have to stay there. It may take you a year to 2 years to build that score back up. But once you understand and you are educated on how to build, because a lot of people will not want to talk to you with a low credit score. You can't purchase this house, that. But I work with a lot of group of women that we all work together in real estate or taxes or any type lawyers. We work together because how can we build that client back? And then I can send them back to that person, because it's not the end. It's just something happened. Life happened. So we as women need to continue to empower ourselves and never feel that we're at the bottom, because there's someone to help you at all times. All you have to do is research and reach out. But the part that you said, Luana, is that My head is down. I got a low credit score. I'm not going to talk to her because I'm embarrassed. If you go into a church and when I go in and talk to parishioners about credit, no one wants to talk about it, even though the minister brought me there because that's what they want. But they feel that everyone will know their story. And that's not what it's about. You're there to better yourself, better your family, better your life, and the next generation.
Yeah, and sometimes, like you said, it's a story. It's a it's a financial story, but it's not one that defines us. As you said,
Right.
life can happen, and sometimes we may have made poor choices, but once you know better, right, and you have the right team, now you can do better. And I know for me during, and you and I've talked about this many times, during the 2007 2008 mortgage crisis, I was rocking and rolling. Life was great. But when you, me at that time as a mortgage company, now has the doesn't have the ability to do loans anymore, my credit started taking a hit because I started to pull from my credit to start
Right.
to keep my business afloat, pull from my retirement account, big no
Mhm.
no, if you can avoid it. And what happened, it wasn't so much that I wasn't able to maintain those payments, Deborah, but at that time, there was really no regulation on what the lenders could do.
Right.
And that was when they started calling the loans due, right? Saying, okay, you need to now pay this in full, or we've increased your your basic payment. So maybe you were
Right.
fine at 500 dollars a month, and now all of a sudden they've increased it to 800, and you're like, oh, do you not understand? I don't have any
Right.
money coming in, and there was no grace.
Nope.
There was no grace given. And so I went from at that time an 805, and I'm sharing this for our audience, from an
Right.
805 to a 525. And I thought, oh my gosh, these I'm one of my clients, right?
Yes.
And but that was life happened. But I had to surround myself with the experts to say, okay, I've never been here before. How do I build back up? What do I need to do to insulate myself from catastrophes such as this?
Right.
And so I just want to pass that ball to you, because now life is good again. But I was in that dark hole, and it was ugly.
I was there. I've been there too. But not, and I tell this to my clients. One of my clients only had one client that asked me what was my credit score. He said, if I want you to work on my credit, what is your credit score? I said, you know what? I appreciate that because no one ever asked me that. My credit score, I can say, thank God today is over 813. But I had to file a bankruptcy with a 753 credit score. I cried. Oh, did I cry? How would someone file a bankruptcy with 753? Why would you? Well, that's the time during 2005, 6, and 7 when I had properties and people stopped paying rent. So I had to still pay 3 mortgages. And then, with that said, you have to remember if a creditor see you have that much debt, you have all of this property, you have been paying the bills, we need to cut back on you. We need to cut back those credit cards you have. So what they did was they started cutting off my credit cards. Now I was like, I had that credit card since I was 16. So you mean to tell me you're going to cut off my credit card? How dare you? But what I had to do was file a bankruptcy to cover myself because I lost my job for maybe 4 months. So with that said, how am I gonna make these payments? And I spoke to one of my business partner who's a bankruptcy attorney, and she sat with me for a while because here's another thing that we have to remember is if you have high debt or you have problems with your debt, you may have high blood pressure. This is going to lead you to stress. You're going to stress yourself out. Your bills would cause problems with your health. So I had to think about it. Will it be my credit score or will it be my health? So what I did was I followed chapter 7. I didn't want to do it, drove my credit scores down to a 553. And it took me 2 credit cards, a Macy's and a Capital One $200 credit card to build my scores back up. But what I learned is things happen. But what I learned now with credit cards, now I have about 4, but I only charge it when I need to charge it. That's another thing. And when I need to, I got to make sure I'm going to pay that card off next month. If I don't have the money and I know I don't have it, then I don't charge. It's not worth buying. So I had to go back and start thinking differently than what I did when I was younger. Because when we were younger, we was never taught in college what to do to credit card. They just told us to charge, and they told us to pay the minimum amount. They didn't tell
Yeah.
us to look at the principal, or they didn't tell us to look at the interest. Nothing. They just said pay the $20. If you charge 500, pay 25. And by then, that card was close to $5,000 interest.
And what you're saying that is so important is it's credit is can be your friend, but you have to understand all of its tentacles because if you're not careful, that $500 sofa or whatever you may have bought may end up costing you $2,000-3,000
Yeah.
because you just weren't managing things in the most ideal situation. I mean, we've all been there. It's like if you don't know, you don't know.
You don't know.
But what would you say to people today? Because we know what's going on, and if we know the rates are up, and so the rates are obviously going to have a corresponding impact on credit cards. And someone's looking at how do I get these credit cards down, but now my minimum has just increased. What one piece of advice would you give that person?
Don't use it if you don't have to. Or if you're going to charge, pay it off the next month. Pay it off, pay it off, pay it off. And the only reason I say that is because we have to think of that credit card as like, and I hate to say it, it's like a slave owner holding you hostage. Because what happens is they're looking at you like, I got her because I'm going to increase her credit, which I get a lot of clients tell me about that. So that's good, right? That's what they say. But if you're going to use that, they're looking at now you're taking the money away of credit that we gave you and you're not going to pay it off. So now we're going to put you in bondage because that interest is constantly driving up. But what you have to remember is if you're going to use the credit card, use Capital One as a name holder, right? You're going to pay them off, but you're paying yourself. You're not paying them, you're paying yourself, but you're using their name to build your credit. So, excuse me. So if you have a credit card at $200, and I always say this to a lot of people, and it's like, that's a poor limit. No, it's not. Because if you can't pay that $200, you don't need a $5,000 credit card. You have to make them think. And I talk to them just like I'm talking here raw, because at the end of the day, you look at this beautiful credit card that you have, this black card. If you have a black card, it means you can pay this card, right? What's the things that come with the black card? A lot of people don't know that. It's much more. You're paying to have a black card. So you just have to remember, if you're going to pay, you got to play, or you want to play, you got to pay. And that's the main thing that I think everyone should remember, and not just get a card just to say they have it, but get a card to build that stability so they can buy this home. Use the card every month if you have to, but pay it off. Not 40%, pay it off. So that means you have more money now establishing your credit.
The other thing like you were saying as far as paying it off is we get all excited when we get in the mail 0% interest credit card, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now you can use that as a tool to get out of that high interest.
Correct.
But it's real important to read and understand what the term of that. So is it 12 months? Is it 15 months, 24 months? But whatever it is at the end, if you have a balance, what is that percentage rate going to be? And I think people are a little surprised when they see anywhere from 18.99 to 25%.
That is robbery, 25% on a credit card. And that's right, because a whole year has passed or 18 months have passed and they still got a balance. If this company is going to give you 12 months to pay this refrigerator off, you got to think about it. Okay, I can do it. But then something else happens and you're on month number 13. And when you only owe $400 left, it's up to $700. And you be looking like, well, what happened to the money that I put on that account? That's interest. And I always tell clients, when you get that statement, look at the statement. And when you're going to make that payment, pay the interest and the balance. Like if they're telling you have to pay $85, pay the interest plus the $85. So you are knocking that out at the same time. But a lot of people forget that interest. And that interest is high. high.
Yeah, it is, and that is a really good lesson. And for those of you that are watching, we're here with Deborah Williams with a Fresh Start Credit. It's Financial Literacy Month, and we are talking about credit and how important credit in your life and in business. And you have to take responsibility and ownership and steer your financial ship. And we get it. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. But when you partner with financial experts like Deborah Williams, then you can ensure yourself that you will have the financial stability that you want. And this isn't about beating you up because we all make mistakes. We just shared our personal story.
Right.
But you don't have to stay there. And I want to get back into, because people like to dance around words, but I liked how you said bondage, and it is a form of enslavement when, like the Bible says, the borrower is slave to the lender. And when you have all this debt racked around you, you're crippled. Your options have just been totally diminished, right?
Right. Right. And it's a bad feeling. It's I can go by my clients, but I can go by my experience even when I filed a bankruptcy, because I felt like, I'm going to back it up a little bit. I had 10 credit cards and I had a limit and I had charged on every card. I had 2 Target. If you don't know, that's a Target card. I had 2 of them. I don't know why they gave them to me, but I was happy that they did. But the point was I had balances on those and then I paid them off or whatever. But the point is it wasn't necessary. And a creditor look at you this way. If you have Macy's, you have department store, Target, or any other type of department store card. But if you have a American Express, Discover, Visa, MasterCard, number one is they're going to look at why would you need a Macy's or any type of Target card if you can use these major cards. And this is what the ladies say. Well, they're not giving me those special deals when I go into that store. So when I go into that store, I can get 20% off and I can get it. Here's the thing. If that's the case, no problem. Then pay that card off after you get that deal. With Macy's, you can pay the bill right inside the store at the same time you purchased it. And so that's one thing that they need to learn, is because when it comes down to buying a home, they're looking at all of this debt that you have accumulated, and especially department stores. The creditors look at this like it's temptation. It's totally temptation. You got the Macy's, you got Target, you got, I don't know, because I don't shop anymore, Amazon. We do Amazon.
Oh my gosh. Yes, Amazon.
But the thing is that
Amazon got you.
They got me. But you got to know just what you got to pay to play, and you got to know how to play the game, because they are playing a game with your mind. That's why I call it bondage, because once they got you, and if you don't know how to establish these credit cards, then they have you. They have you from one $200 cards that lead you to $5,000 to $10,000, and then you want to know how you want to pay. But here's the worst part of it all: why should I pay them? That's what some clients gonna say. Yeah, I get these calls all the time, and they're harassing me to pay this bill. And then here's the question: did you make that charge? Yeah. Well, why do you feel that you shouldn't pay them? So that's a whole nother discussion that we talk about. And then we have to do things with that, but it is ways around it. It's definitely ways around it. And we could talk about that offline if you want to call me about that. But, you got to remember, if you establish the debt, then you are responsible for the debt.
Yes. So many people don't realize that when they have this card and they're charging, that you are literally borrowing someone else's money. And if you were that lender, wouldn't you want your money back with interest, because you're giving, grace in repaying? So.
Yeah, that's true, Luana. But, you ain't gonna think about it once you charging and buying all those items. And what usually happens once they purchase the home, everyone want to put new furniture in there. We got to support. We have to live the best way we can. And then that's when the issues start coming in too.
Exactly. We're going to pause for a moment for a quick commercial break, and we will be right back. to hear more about the world of credit.
Deborah L. Morrison is a TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and international motivational speaker. She's a recipient of the Marquis's Who's Who Women of Influence Award. A seasoned, life-centered certified financial planner and empowered retirement coach, she partners with people to maximize their return on life, not just their investments. Deborah has been featured on CNN, ABC, and MSG's Metro Money Television. She's also been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, the New York Times, Business Week, Money Magazine, Ladies' Home Journal, Nations, Business, CNN, Money, Reader's Digest, Kiplinger's, and more. Deborah she teaches that it's possible to live in the moment and also save for the future. Known for her easy-to-understand speaking style, Deborah combines sage wisdom with refreshing humor.
Well, Deborah, one of the questions that I have, I know that there's the new model, kind of going a little bit away from the FICO, where I guess the creditors will start looking at the overarching story, not just this one snapshot in time. Do you know? Can you tell us a little bit about that? And is it currently underway, or are we still all under this FICO score?
What I've found out so far is that we still under the FICO scores so far from some of the realtors that I just met with and some of the loan officers as well. They're still going by the overall FICO score and going by that middle number, which is the middle number is the average of both of those scores is what they're all three of the scores. And so far, I haven't seen the new model. I haven't had any one mention that to me yet. So I really don't know how that works. But so far, as of yesterday, they was going by the the regular model that we've seen with the FICO score.
Yeah, when I read a few months ago about it, I thought, wow, this would be so good because now it gives a broader span of the story rather than this is what you look like at this point in time. But again, how everyone is going to adopt it, are they going to apply it the same way, is a big question mark. So
yeah, and I think majority of them are saying too, like take for instance, if a client has some negative, I guess, remarks, as we can say, on their credit report, and take for instance, if it's medical. As we know of, majority of the loan officers or the lenders said life happens. And what I just had a call about, I think it was Saturday, if the amount was under 5,000, they wasn't going to worry about that. So I'm just using that for example. What they were looking for is if a client had credit cards or didn't pay their bills with cable and things like that, then that's the accounts that we need to address. But far as the medical bills, they didn't want to deal with it. They said that the banks wasn't looking at that unless it was an astronomical amount. So, so different lenders, as you know, is different request, and then another thing is that I think this is something I definitely need to mention is that everyone should know the age of accounts that's on their credit report. And a lot of people do not understand what I'm talking about when I'm saying age of their accounts. But take, for instance, if they had an account that is located in the collections area, if the account is over 4 or 5 years old, at that moment, we will say, do not touch it because we know it's getting ready to drop soon. Maybe in the 7th year, it's going to drop or it's close to the 7th year. But then there's a caveat and it's not, because what happens usually is sold over to another company right at the end when you know it's going to drop. And also lenders will mention to you, we don't want them to touch the old accounts, because sometimes when we do pay off the old accounts, it drops their credit scores down. So it's like a game with the bureaus and stuff. We can't really control it. There's always disclaimers. We can't promise what the score is going to be. But what we want to do is make sure that the clients pay the accounts that are recent, that are young on their accounts, nothing old. But when it comes to, as you know, anything that's in public records, that's a whole different story. And what we mean by public records, if it's a bankruptcy that needs to be released, or if it's a garnishment, or if it's something like child support, that's something that has to be addressed immediately. So we just got to make sure if you don't have anything on public records, then awesome. But I think that is something that everyone needs to know the difference. Their credit report, collections, and public records. There's different areas in that credit report that you need to know the difference. What's active, what's closed. Do not close accounts. You always hear people say close account once it's zero. Let them close it, but do not close it on your own. Please don't close it. That would take your points down close to 5 to 7 points or more.
Well, Deborah, can you believe we are almost out of time? And I know you have some things that you want to share with our listening audience. So I'm going to take myself down and give you the stage.
Thank you. Well, first of all, if you would like to reach me, you can contact me at 770-833-8364. And that's Deborah Williams at afreshstartllc.com. But what I would like to use this few minutes to share with you is, number one is, do you know your credit score? Have you pulled your credit score? Do you know it comes from 3 bureaus, or is it 2 bureaus? Do you know that if you only have 1 credit score, why is that? What is the highest credit score a person can have? Usually it's 850. If you're in that range, you can purchase anything you want. That's if you have the money, of course, but you can buy it on your credit. And then another thing that I want everyone to know, that credit is the ability to borrow money for goods and services. Like people want to know, what is credit? This is the reason why. As I stated before, it's the beginning of your story. Your credit tells your story from the beginning, the middle, and the end. You control it. There's 3 credit bureaus, as I said before, is Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So please do me a favor. You can pull your credit report from, and it's free, Credit Karma, and that's www.creditkarma.com. That gives you 2 scores, and it comes from 2 bureaus, which is TransUnion and Equifax. What you have to remember is those credit scores that you see with them are not your true scores. So never, ever think that's your true scores, because it's not. What you have to do is verify the information in those credit reports is actually you, because some information in that credit report may not be you, or it could be things on your credit report that was paid and it wasn't removed off your credit report, and it can be removed if it was paid. And one last thing that I want you to remember is that when you reach companies who tell you that they can remove things off your credit report, be very leery about that, because usually when they do, it comes back on your credit report 30 days after. So anything that is your credit or is your debt is going to be on your credit report. If it's not, then we can prove that we can remove that off. Then we can remove that information off your credit report. And that's it. Don't forget to call me at 770-833-8364.
This has been great, Deborah. Thank you so much for joining us and enlightening our listening audience. And please reach out to Deborah. She can help guide you, educate you, because we know knowledge is one thing, but it's applied knowledge is where the power resides.
Right.
You can reach her at afreshstartllc.com or 770-833-8364. And I want to thank all of you. Thank you again, Deborah, for being a part of this show.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much for having me. And one more thing, you can be anywhere in the world and I can help you. It doesn't matter.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Where you're located.
That's wonderful.
Thank you, Luana.
And to those of you who are watching, remember that your financial health is just as important as your physical health. As Deborah mentioned, if you have stress and anxiety and sleepless nights because of your finances, guess what? It impacts you physically. So let's get our lives in order. Let's create harmony and balance. And just remember that when your life and your vision intersect with opportunity, success is inevitable. Until next time, we'll see you next week on another edition of Business and Financial Raw Talk. Thank you again,
Right.
Deborah.